I'm waiting for quorum. Bruce and Georgia, do you have quorum on your side?
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I can confirm you've got a quorum.
We need one more on DMC for us to have quorum. Chris and Lisa, do you know if the other two had RSVP'd?
Stephanie is not going to be able to make it, Dawn. Justin does plan to attend.
Cool. It is exactly
he is.
starting time. Yep, 4:30. So
Here he is.
no one's really late yet.
I'm sorry, Dawn, we haven't met. Can you tell me who you are, your position?
My name is Don Poe. I'm the chair of the Downtown Management Commission. Susan has previously been chair of the Downtown Management Commission. Stephanie Trees, who's not here tonight, is the co-chair or vice chair. And Justin, who is maybe not been promoted to panelist yet, is another chair. So the DMC has 4 members right now. We have an open chair.
Okay, thanks.
Or an open seat, I should say.
I have been promoting him to panel. Here he comes. It's a little slow. There we go.
And Don, you can see some of my fellow arts commissioners, Yalaid, Caroline, and Maria, and of course, Georgia.
Great, thanks for all your efforts. And so Bruce and I used to work together a while ago, and Bruce and I still collaborate on projects from time to time. So Bruce and I have known each other for 20 plus years. So he and I go way back.
Way back.
But so we are now at quorum. So there are no minutes to approve from last time. So call to order, we're going to discuss the approval of our agenda, which is basically the public art program. Does anyone move that we approve the agenda?
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the agenda. Is this
Second.
a joint thing? Like, does it have to be from a particular commission or board?
No, I
Okay.
think it's a joint meeting.
Just
We're
a
all
free-for-all.
together. We are a mesh today.
Yes, this is a newly christened commission. It's the Joint Commission.
I would say it's the Downtown Management Commission with the Arts Commission.
I will second Bruce's motion. How's that?
Yes, thank you. So with that, we are here to talk about the public art in the garages. And I understand, Matt, you would like to discuss, lead the discussion tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you all so much for the quick action to pull this meeting together. The reason that we had to do that, normally we would go through the process of approving these types of public art commissions with the normal cadence of both of our boards. Where we find ourselves, though, is that because of the rules of funding for this project, that it requires us to take some quick action so that we can get an artist into contract and have that funding assigned to this project before the end of the year. And so that was something that we didn't anticipate with the Arts Commission's change in the Arts Commission process, but it required us to just, sort of pull this together quickly. So I definitely want to thank all the commissioners from both commissions for acting quickly on this, and also to Lisa and Chris for being nimble with this so that we could make it happen. But I have a presentation I'm going to show you, and it's going to walk through several elements of the public art policy, the process that we went through to arrive at this point in the approval, and the details of the proposals, and a recommendation for motion language at the end of that. Before I share my screen with you, though, I wanted to call out that Mary Valdez is with us. Mary is the consultant on this project who's working on, hi, Mary, with selection and contracting and design and construction of this project. Mary has a track record of decades with the Denver Arts and Venues Public Art Program, is a very trusted voice in the community. So we're really lucky to have her on board to help make sure this project is stewarded appropriately and that the public art is successful. So I may reach to you, Mary, to answer some questions that I've got during the presentation. But she's also a resource for us if you have questions, the commissioners have questions about process, the proposals, and the next steps.
Thank you, Matt.
So yes, is there a question? No, we're all good. All right, so I'm just going to get started and share my screen.
Matt, I do have Maria in the waiting room, and I'm really trying to get her in, but it's moving very slowly. So just so you're aware, she's here and she will be coming in.
I thought I saw Maria pop into the meeting.
Perhaps she's having challenges with audio.
Maybe the case. I'm going to stop sharing for a second so we can.
Yeah. Anyhow, I can see.
she's-
Oh, hi, Maria. I do see her in the meeting. Is there another Maria? Maria Cole, is that who you're referring to?
Maria Cole.
Okay.
Yeah, there she is.
Maria-
Okay, I don't know why she's still showing. Excellent, good.
We want Maria here no matter how it happens. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. So this is just to briefly run through the background of the project. The site is the Spruce Garage at 11th and Spruce. The entire building was the site. However, there was some focus on specific areas, but the artists were able to choose the site that they would be proposing for. There was a desire actually many years ago to have art integrated into the parking garage program. And the idea behind that was that, the garages are many things, but they are certainly a gateway to Boulder for people. For many people, it's their first footfalls in Boulder are going to be at these parking garages. It's also about accessibility for people to work and to live in Boulder is these garages. And so we definitely had in mind for a long time that there could be arts applications to the garages to enhance their use and to create a better experience for people. Overlaid with that, there's the public art policy. So arts commissioners know all about this. I'm sure they've read it many times with pleasure, but I'm going to slow down just for a second in case you, the members of the DMC, have any questions about this. But basically, we have a policy that guides exactly how we collect works of public art. And we're very rigorous about this because we want the selection of art to be a community process and for the community to be not only making the decision, to be invested in the decision and trusting that the money spent on public art is being stewarded. So you see on the left-hand side of your screen, the process that we go through. This is a standard process. It does change and evolve with each project, but this is the template by which we conduct each of these public art processes. And where we find ourselves now is in the step 3, the finalist selection. So we've gone through several iterations of working with a technical review committee, which I'll talk about in a minute, a community selection panel, the community itself, and that I'll talk about again in a second, and the Boulder Arts Commission and staff have all participated in getting us to this point. And then I wanted to call out that the actual language in the policy around what we're doing today is on the right-hand side of your screen. So the Arts Commission has a responsibility to approve that the process was the process that was described in the public art policy was followed. In addition to that, both the Arts Commission and the DMC have a chance to weigh in on the finalist, the proposal, and what will make it a successful project. So when we get to that point in tonight's discussion, we will be asking for your advice to bring to the artists and for staff to carry forward on how this could be best executed as a work of public art. I think it's important to note that the actual decision on the right artist for the job is the role of the community selection panel. And it's the role of staff and our consultant, Mary, to make sure that we are executing the design, the construction, and the maintenance of the project to meet the not only the decision of the selection panel about the best artist, but also to your advice and to the spirit of the proposal. So we have this responsibility going forward about the, not only all this other process that's happened, but the discussion tonight, that we're going to work with the artist to meet some of the criteria that you as members of the community have decided make this a great project. So well, actually, before I go on to the actual project and the process itself, does anyone have any questions about the public art policy? Any clarification that's needed? I can't see everyone, so definitely shout if you are interested, but we can come back and if a question comes up about the policy, let me know, but it's a guidance document, very important to us to make sure that's done right. So let's talk about this particular project. This has gone through already some rigor. The design team and community selection panel were formed and a budget put together for the project before we even started to build criteria about it. That second big bullet about the RFQ and the open call was really about assembling together the criteria for the project, the nature of the space, and some of our hopes for the success, so that artists across the country could take a look at that and decide if they were if they thought they would do a good job and wanted to apply. And so we did an open call. We got hundreds. Is it 163, Mary, project? Yeah, I think that's what we said.
Yes,
163 applicants. And that is pretty typical for a call of this size. But after the pandemic and sort of a lull in public art, it was great to see that many people interested in working in Boulder. The community selection panel had the responsibility then of reviewing all 163 applications and deciding on just a few, 5 they ended up with, semifinalists who they brought in to actually work on full proposals. Just recently, on November 10th, the selection panel met, heard presentations from each of the semifinalists, and had a detailed discussion to come to a conclusion on who would be the best to move forward into the next steps of approval. I will say that one of those artists removed themselves because of personal matters, so we ended up with 4 semifinalists that we'll be talking about today. So the technical review committee, as I mentioned, this is a group of staff. Sometimes there's other people involved in different projects, but in this case, it made sense for members of staff who knew the most about the site, about the public art policy and the community cultural plan, and to come together and basically give advice to the selection panel, to the semifinalists, to you, about how these different ideas for works of art are best suited to the uses of the site, long-term maintenance, and other issues. And then you see the members of the community selection panel. So we're lucky in this meeting to have Georgia and Susan available. And later on, I'm going to put you both on the spot to talk about the selection process. But we always like to have representation from our boards and commissions on these because we can carry forward more of a broad view of the community needs and the details of each of these projects. So selection panel, very important. It is our community representatives who make the very hard decision on which artist is best and which project is going to be best for this.
Matt, I might interject there that
Yes.
Stephanie Trees, one of the other community members, is also a DMC member. She's not
Yes.
here tonight, but just so everyone knows.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and both Susan and Stephanie were very valuable to that process. So we appreciate your service to the selection panel there. So I'm not going to read through this. There was some detail put into the call to artists, the request for qualifications, to give them good background, to understand what we want this project to do, some of the limitations. And we tried to get as much information up front, and I don't think it's in here, but we also did a site visit. Now, normally a site visit would be literally inviting semifinalists to the site to explore and to answer their questions. This time, it worked out best to do a video, which I think is a practice we're going to do forward because that was very successful. But it's a way for the technical review committee to meet with the artists, give them information. And so there was a little bit, the video and a little bit of back and forth to make sure everyone was fully informed about the site and the criterion. So I want to show you the proposals that were presented to the selection panel. And the first one was a group in town called Streetwise Arts. The director is Leah Brenner-Clack. She brought together several different artists as part of a team to produce a proposal for a mural and sculptural work here on that's southwest, right? Southwest corner of the structure. Interestingly, the proposals were all for this corner with, some variation, but there was a lot of attraction to this as sort of the point at which all activity goes through, or most activity goes through with this garage. And so a lot of attention was paid here. But this is a proposal that it was interesting, noteworthy in that it did involve a group of artists who aren't necessarily a team that would have gotten together otherwise, but a group who Leah sort of curated as different area artists who could work together in an interesting way, and came up with this proposal for that site. I'm going to go a little bit quicker through these. I apologize. I tend to linger. The next artist, Rebecca Rutstein from Pennsylvania, came up with a sculpture application to that same corner, one that was inspired by the topographic view of the Flatirons in the surrounding area. David Franklin and Aaron Welton came up with this idea, also inspired by the Flatirons, but in a more abstract way, and one that, again, addressing that same site, but to specifically focus on a sculptural piece in aluminum that sort of pierces through, visually, not literally, pierces through the windows of that second floor. And then finally, Matt Brand came up, is that finally? Actually, there might be one more. No, that's finally. Matt Brand from Massachusetts came up with this idea, which is a piece that's made with a very specific perforated metal process that sort of makes a 3D holographic effect with different symbols that not only were in this site, but actually sort of appeared in different parts around the building. So that's what the 4 semifinalists proposed. The selection panel then had to wrestle with those proposals, asked a lot of questions, lined up their thoughts against the criteria that's you see there, that's described in the public art policy. And in the end, with a vote of 3 out of 5, made a recommendation of David Franklin and Aaron Welton. Mary, do you want to jump in here a little bit and talk about their piece and what the selection panel discussed?
Sure, I'm happy to do that, Matt. With David Franklin and his team member, Aaron, they basically were both present during the, let me put myself on camera. There I am. Working as a team, significant experience in working together as a team for public art projects. At the end of the day, the selection panel felt that their work was the best representation of what, a garage could do as far as like impactful for visitors of Boulder, or as you mentioned earlier, people that live there and worked in the vicinity. So here's a rendering of the corner that is being proposed. So there's 4 different windows, we'll just call them windows, where the work will come out. And basically what it is more of a, hold on, let me catch my thoughts here. It is made out of aluminum. Hold on, let's see here. Give me 1 second. Aluminum, they're water jet cut, anodized colored surface. I think the selection panel, really interested and fascinated by the color application, which is more kind of like in my mind, it's kind of like a patina and more of like an organic look visually. And then also being in the interior of the garage, you also get an impact. So you're, parking in there on the second, third floor, you'll get that visualization. So it worked well for both interior and exterior for onlookers.
Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
And, I think it might be helpful now if Susan and Georgia, if you want to talk about the process that you went through and the final decision.
Sure, I'll start. I'll add to Mary's comments that he also indicated that there could be a light source behind some of the protruding pieces, particularly the ones that were perforated. So that intrigued us as well, that it wouldn't just be a daytime thing. You could also have a different experience of it in the evening. And I thought the process was great. I thank you for including me in this. The selection process was difficult. I mean, starting out with 163, trying to narrow it down, that first meeting was pretty painful in terms of having to say no to something you really loved. But the finalists' presentations were all really, really good. I mean, I would have taken any of, if we can put the others in other places, I think that would be great. They were all just really, really high quality, unique, really appealing pieces. So the finalists were all really magnificent. And I felt like we tried to walk a line between something that really appeals to a wide variety of people, children, adults, something that would be interesting to everybody who looked at it, and something that you would want to come back and look at again because it would change over time. So I think that's the impression that I got out of it. It was a fantastic process.
Great, thank you. Georgia, what were your feelings about it?
Yes, it was an interesting experience for sure. Reading through all of the proposals and just reading about all the different artists was interesting. They had a lot of examples of work they'd done in the past, which was really nice. And just to see how it looked in other public spaces, that was really helpful. Yeah, and I think that the panel was really interesting. I think it was Yuri. He really knows about materials and metals and how they will wear over time outdoors, like in our weather specifically. There was a lot of talk about, the wind and the snow and how it will affect, the piece. And I was very just like thankful that he was there with all of his knowledge on metals and like how it, there was something that was there that if it got wet, it would drip rust and then it would stain the sidewalk below. So it was a really thoughtful process. Everyone really had a lot to say about just representing Boulder and thinking about the people that will be coming, to see this, So yeah, it was great. It was hard. Like Susan said, having to say no to something that you really liked is really hard. So
No kidding. You have to say no a couple hundred times.
Yes.
To things you like. Yeah.
Yes.
And Chris, I see your hands up. You were next on my list anyway. So your thoughts.
Thanks, Matt. Well, I wanted to chime in and let folks know we heard from Commissioner Trees from DMC. While she's not able to be here, she did participate on the selection committee and did send us an email to asking us to let you all know that she did. She thought that the process was thorough and she agrees with the ultimate artist decision of David Franklin. So I just wanted to share that. And kind of the I was very much in the background of the process of following it in the periphery, but it seemed like it went really well. I'm really thankful to all the time and energy folks spent to get to this conclusion. I'm I'm quite excited, and I think that it will be moving forward with this work will just set us up for success for future applications. Susan, I'm not sure if we can commit to the exact artists that you reviewed in the other proposals, but I'm excited to see where this work takes us next.
Great, thank you. So one thing that I want to note here, as dramatic as this rendering is, and I'm personally excited about the project itself, but as like with all public art projects, this is a preliminary proposal, and there's a lot of work still to be done in the design. So this is probably not exactly what you'll see. We'll keep the artist to their to what was approved and with respect to the advice that you're about to give, but things always change with public arts and evolves. So Mary's big job will be keeping the artist on task, under budget, and making sure that we have a successful piece of public art on the other end of this. And to do that, let's see. Oh, we don't have next steps on this. Some next steps is that after we go through this process of approval, we're going to go into contracting with the artist. Once they're under contract, we start design. There'll be a couple of months of design work before installation can begin. And so fabrication usually takes a while in installation. So we're going to work with the artist on a time frame. We'll keep you all updated at every step along the way, and certainly invite you to ribbon cutting when the time is appropriate. But getting way ahead of ourselves, I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see each other and just try our best to answer any questions that you have to clarify the process about the artist and artwork itself. And then we'll go back to the motion when you feel that's appropriate.
I see Caroline has raised her hand, but before we get to that, Matt, can you bring up a previous slide that talked about what we are here to consider? We are not here to necessarily consider the artwork itself, but more the process. And so that slide I thought was instrumental, that I wanted to
sorry for
review what we are here to talk about.
This is the slide. Is this a slide you're referring to?
Was it the next? Was it this one or the next one? I can't remember. I think that must have been it. So I just wanted to go. The arts, so as it's written here, the Arts Commission may approve the acquisition process, deny approval, or delay approval. Is that kind of what we are here to cover right now? Because you also talked about like what other considerations might we give to the artist and things like that. I wanted to make sure we're aligned on what we are here to just talk about.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. And so what the steps we'll go through is first, any clarifying questions you have to fully understand the decision you need to make is first. After that, we're going to ask for 2 questions. The first of which is if the members of the Arts Commission approve of the process itself. And so we'll have to have a quick discussion, not quick, however long you want it to be, a discussion about if the process was followed properly. And then there's, for the entire group, the question of what advice do you have to the artist and to staff to make sure this is a successful project? We'll record all that and share that. After those 2 discussions, then we can go to the motion. And the policy requires that the Arts Commission pass that motion, but I'm just going to go ahead and say, let's make it the full group. If there are dissenting opinions, we can certainly have that reflected and make sure that it's stewarded properly. But I think it's more powerful if the full group is responsible for that motion and the final vote on that. Does that help clarify?
That's great for me. I just want to maybe make sure we're all on the same page. So really first, we can jump around as much as we need to, but really any specific questions around this. And Caroline, you have had your hand up.
Thanks, and I just want to thank everybody who's gone through the process. I can't imagine how hard that was to narrow it down. My question does have to do with the process and potentially feed into recommendations for successful implementation. And I'm wondering what, if any, discussions were had around safety protocols or anything on safety. Because I look at that and I think, oh, climbers and parkour, and I want to climb on that. So I wonder if that was part of your discussion, or, the proposal or anything like that.
Great. And Mary, I think it'd be best if you answered that question.
Yes, happy to talk about that. Great question. So with this particular work, as Matt mentioned, this is a concept right now. Some thoughts from the selection panel is that perhaps softening the edges of the artwork so it does not come across like, like some kind of weapon or something that is concerning. And so those were some of the comments that we received from our selection panel. But as Matthew mentioned, and definitely want to hear back from Georgia and Susan, I am taking notes with how, when I speak to the artists, some good feedback. The second thing also that was brought up from the selection panel was to possibly get some community feedback. That's something that's kind of typical with some public art projects where we can maybe get some buy-in from the community, but kind of want to hear your thoughts on that, Matt. As you know, this is my first project managing through the city of Boulder. So those are my two thoughts.
I think Matt has some good practical experience from having dealt with public feedback on public art.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce. Yes, I do.
So, but specifically to my question, was there any discussion around safety issues?
Well, I can tell you that safety concerns are going to be struck through the entire process, right? And I know that, paying attention to exactly about fabrication and the edges and the real and implied safety of the piece was under discussion. Ultimately, the answer to your question, though, comes down to the design process in which the artist will have to employ a certified engineer who will make sure that all contingencies, including making sure that it's the least climbable possible, that it is going to be secured to the building in such a way that there's no risk of, damage and during hailstorms or wind, right? So all of those considerations come together as part of the building permit. And so, we'll pay very close attention to that and sort of, with the help of our risk management department, sort of walk through all the scenarios and make sure that's taken care of. Now, that said, this being Boulder, one note we always have to make in every one of these public art projects is there is no way to prevent our community from climbing on things. And so what we tend to do is to try and over-engineer with that in mind, knowing that we're never going to recommend anyone climb on it. If we need to, we'll put a sign up that says, please don't climb on this. But these are in the public realm. And so there is a certain amount of safety mitigation we'll do, knowing that, it's still going to be out there. And so, it's a fine line we have to walk, but it'll be a part of the conversation right up to the moment we cut that ribbon, for sure.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
One question I had, it mentioned how 3 of 5 of the panelists approved this one. What came in second?
I'll hand it back to you for that, Mary.
Great question. Rebecca Rusting was, she obtained 2 votes from the 4. So there was a total of 5 selection panel members. 3 opted to select David and his team member, and the other 2 opted for Rebecca.
Does anyone else have questions about overall before we go into the process parts?
Yeah, so I might have missed this, but the motif chosen is going to be carried through on the spruce side of the parking garage as well. What we're seeing now is on the 11th Street side, but the entrance to the garage is on the spruce side. So I guess that's what I'm wondering. Is it going to be carried through the whole building?
So the proposal is just for the 11th Street side and focusing on that pedestrian interface with the stairwell. If you'd like to make it part of your comments to investigate other sites, we could do that. But the budget, I think, is going to drive exactly the scale.
Right. Yeah, that would be my only thought on it, is people are driving past that from the, like, they're not coming towards the design, they're kind of driving past it, and they'll see it in their rear view if they're accessing that street. I think it's good, like you said, for the pedestrian interface there. That's the elevator side, and I understand that, but was just curious if that was going to be carried through to the side where people actually enter the garage.
That's another great question, Justin. Thank you for bringing that up. So I will just mention, so when I conducted the site visit with the technical team to include Chris, Eric, and Samantha, as we walked around the perimeter of the garage, basically it was, at the end of the day, the technical team, and I'll let you talk on this behalf, Chris, because I think you had so many great points. Being, an outsider, well, I visit Boulder every 2 weeks for hiking, good food, and so forth. Initially, I thought, it's got to be the entrance of, that is so impactful. But there was also a lot of discussion with the technical team about, there are some commercial spaces which might not be appropriate to install work on that front facade. So as we turned the corner and we kind of camped in on that corner, the southwest corner, the technical team felt like it was such an impactful location because visually, if you're at Pearl Street Mall, that connectivity was so great. And then also that alleyway, which really plays the role of an important thoroughfare for the public, whether they're parking there or they're just kind of, coming across through that alleyway, that corner area. As we shared the video with the artists, they all kind of just honed in on that area. We also, showed them, of course, the length of the alleyway and some other areas. And it was really interesting. The artists all kind of gravitated thinking, this is probably the most influential location. But we definitely, are open to comments.
Thanks, Mary. I might add just, that what we communicated technically was that we didn't necessarily want to have art just celebrating the fact that this is a garage where people are driving into, but more a really important building in the downtown that contributes to the overall experience of Pearl Street and the downtown experience. And so, while we pointed to in the video, we pointed to the Spruce Street entrance. It was curious that all of the proposals, while we didn't tell them to focus on that corner, that's the corner that they all picked. We, of course, in the future, could consider an application on the 11th or on the Spruce Street side. But again, I think that, in the technical video, we did communicate that we weren't just interested in highlighting the place where cars are accessing the place, but more about, where can this investment influence more than just the cars.
Right. And I brought it up mainly because the rendering that the artist provided had cars entering in that exit area, and I just wanted to, I guess, make sure the artist knew the order of operations there.
I would also note that as we are moving to gateless, we will no longer need 2 entrances and 2 exits on all of our garages, and there could be a change in traffic flows and how vehicles access. I'm not saying that there definitely will be, but there could be a future where there could be an entrance on the 11th Street side as well.
Got it. Great.
Maybe Chris, you may be the one to know the answer to this. When we're thinking about curb cuts and where we're trying to target for Uber pickups and stuff like that, how that's also in that same area there, right, too, correct?
Correct. That's historically a taxi stand area, and we're in the curbside management work targeting that 11th Street frontage as a pickup drop off for TNCs.
Matt, did I see you trying to flag a?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but just a quick point of process that Ebony Freeman has joined us. And for members of the DMC, I wanted to introduce her. She is a member of the Arts Commission.
Thanks for joining us, Ebony. We've got 3 of the DMC here as well. I am the DMC chair, as Susan and Justin are also on DMC, since you don't know who we are.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
As I represent the DMC and what Boulder's trying to do, we're trying to encourage people to use the parking garages more. And so this is maybe not the right part to do it, but is there anything we can do to pull this art into the garage to make it interesting inside the garage? What can we do with this to make this more than a parking garage? I know we're trying to make it interesting, and there's some interesting points were just brought up. That being said, the DMC has been tasked with making the parking garages more utilized and trying to get people off the street parking and into garages more. Is there any, that is maybe not a question we need to have right now, but as the input is when working with the artist, is there anything that we can do to pull it in to make the garage itself like interesting?
That's done excellent advice to bring back to the artist and say, as they work through the design, starting to think about what that does. I mean, I don't know what it's worth, but for my part, just adding this level of interest might do that, right? It's such a sort of like eye-catching design that perhaps it would be something that people seek out. And if you're going to park in one of the parking garages in Boulder, or you're going to make a decision between street and on parking, you might go for the one that has the cool piece of art. And so there might be an interesting sort of secondary way that this does drive exactly what you're talking about.
And I just want to chime in that, yes, we should absolutely be having that conversation, because the downside of making sure that our parking garages are not just they aren't just parking garages, right? They are part of the urban fabric and urban design of our downtown. Folks don't necessarily know that they're there. And so it's certainly part of our work. I would offer that, in this particular location, it's our highest utilized garage. It does regularly fill up. So I don't know that's a problem that we necessarily need to solve here, but certainly should be part of the conversation moving forward here in other locations, as just educating folks on where they can and should park. And I think that this art, again, it's our first application, and what will hopefully be many more that we want to explore at this location and others in the future. And that should be part of consideration.
Yeah, just as we start to think about more public art and things like that, how could, bringing it in, I just think I like interactivity, making it so like the kids want to park there and they hit a button and they can turn on the lights. If you have those light features, you can hit it and it makes a sound, or, the kids want to park there and drive their parents mad to go play with it before they run down to the Boulder Bookstore. Ebony did direct message me, if you don't mind me saying what you had to say. Ebony, geocaching within the garage as well as another thing. So Ebony just kind of making light what one of your comments. Yalid, I saw that you had your hand up. Would you like to add something? Your hand's down now.
Oh, my only question was if there was going to be metrics, like for instance, if we were trying to pull in more people parking there, if there was going to be metrics involved to see if that did end up happening compared to other garages.
Well, I mean, Chris, you know more than I do about how to record what goes on in a garage. I would say for the public art, it's very difficult to draw a line between the installation of a work of art and any sort of specific outcomes. We are actually starting conversations with Colorado State University. There's a professor there who's working on these types of issues, and hopefully we'll be able to have some data that leads to the social outcomes of public art. But it is notoriously difficult to find data sets related to the impact of public art. It's more about storytelling. And so on the public art side, that's a challenge that we're trying to sort of get at. But Chris, do you want to weigh in on how that affects parking?
So I'm sharing my screen. Our Smarking dashboard. We do collect and keep a ton of data related to the activity in all of our garages, not just our garages, but all of our on-street system as well. So we can certainly monitor this information and see if there's any upticks this garage is again challenging in the sense of the occupancy. I'm just going to go for, year to date daily peak. This garage does fill up quite regularly. So it's going to be hard to quantify whether or not using the numbers, whether or not there's a difference. But we'd also do regular surveying of visitors, employees, businesses in the community around many issues around the downtown in partnership with the Downtown Boulder Partnership. And so we could certainly start exploring whether or not, folks have seen the art, whether or not it's improved their perception of their downtown experience or not. So we certainly could talk with our partners and see if they want to incorporate those types of questions to try to eke those types of things out.
I don't know, Chris, we could put a little coin operated machine and then you turn on the lights for 30 seconds by dropping in a quarter and it's generating income.
You're such an entrepreneur there.
Well, I know what my board has been tasked with. Maria, your hand is up.
Yes, sorry, I'm having some technical issues, so sorry I can't show my face, but I have a couple of technical questions and maybe some comments. First, I think it's really exciting that we got this kind of response to the RFQ, so that's fantastic. And I think second, it's Mary is fantastic asset to this team, so it's great to see you again, Mary. My technical issues are related to, and it looks like there were some comments in the proposals about bird control, also snow and ice, and to wind. And I would recommend adding consultants to deal with those things. There is a bird consultant in Boulder that CU Boulder uses all the time. And perhaps you want to take this through a wind tunnel test with also with snow and ice, because I think that would be very unfortunate if it became a place for icicles to hang and hurt folks down below.
That's excellent advice, Maria. We'll carry that forward for sure.
Well, seeing as we've had questions, we can welcome any other questions, but to keep things moving along here, the Arts Commission was tasked with certifying that the process had been followed. Is there any discussion around that, or does someone want to move a vote that yes, it was or not followed?
Before somebody makes a motion, I just want to quickly say that though I completely disagree with the artist's work that was chosen, I'm fully in support of the process and happy to vote to approve the process.
Great. So Bruce has stated a disagreement with the art, but that is not for what are necessarily we get to discuss tonight, as I understand our direction from Matt. But Bruce, I also understand your comment, and I wish I had maybe been on the discussion panel, but I am going along with the process. It would be fantastic to see what other ones are there. So Bruce has. Did you move?
I didn't make a motion. I just wanted to make that comment before it was too late.
So
I'd be happy to make a motion if you wanted to put the language back up.
I'm on it.
So this is the motion for point number 2 that I think we needed to discuss was not this motion, but I think it was the process followed, I think is one of the things you wanted to have addressed, Matt. And so.
Yeah, and that's what this motion speaks to. So what we'll do is if there is a motion and a second for this, then, you can discuss the process in isolation, make sure that you talk that through before there's a vote. After that vote, then we can go back and make sure, we have captured some ideas and advice for the artist, but we can just have a moment to make sure there's the last opportunity to speak to the success of the project. So we'll start with process through this motion.
Well, I would like to, instead of proposing this, because to me, this is the last thing we do.
Okay.
If you can take this off, I would like to just make sure that does anyone have any comment as to the process being followed or any missteps or concerns about the process?
And Don, did you want to introduce Lane?
Lane has just joined us. Lane, why don't you give yourself an introduction? I have talked to you 1,000 times, but you're going to do a better intro.
Thank you. Well, I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but yeah, Lane Landreth, Office of Community Vitality, and just super curious to see what the plans are that Matt and his team have dreamed up. So happy to support in any way.
Great. Well, so one of the comments Matt made earlier is like making sure the process is followed. Does anyone have any issues with the process that has been taken to date? Hearing none, I'm going to move on from that type of the question. We've covered general questions. One last call for questions. Just making, I wanted to try to follow this in steps. General questions, process questions, and then input to the artists. Is there any other input to the artists that people would like to address? We've kind of covered all these all along. I'm just making sure. Okay, now I feel comfortable that if someone would like to propose moving, Matt, if you want to bring it back up. And I think, boy, I forgot Caroline, I think maybe, but I'm not sure of all the names. I think Caroline, you actually moved this. Do we have us?
I haven't moved that yet, but
Okay.
I moved that we approve this process was properly conducted and recommend that the selection panel's recommendation of artist team David Franklin and Aaron Welton and their proposed concept advance to the city manager for final approval via contract.
And so with this larger commission, instead of just having a second, I think it's appropriate to have an aye nay vote than just a second. We can do a roll call if we need to, but I don't think that's necessary. Can we hear? Everyone is muted. I would
So,
like you,
and sorry to interrupt, Don, we do need a second before we vote, just
Okay.
to reflect in the minutes.
great. Do we have a second? I will second it. Then. So what I would propose is that we do an aye nay vote on this. Or is that even appropriate at this time, Chris? That's not what we need. We just needed to second it and we're done.
As long as no, so yeah, now if unless there's any final discussion about the motion or friendly amendments, if we're ready to make, if there's no more discussion, then can go to vote.
So what I would propose is that we all go off mute and just do aye nay versus doing a roll call. So that means I can't necessarily make you all go off mute, but you need to go off mute. And so I'm looking for all the commissioners and I'm looking at all the commissioners and it looks like we're all there. So those in favor, aye.
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 Those against, nay. I didn't get to vote. I'll add my ayes to the aye. So I heard no nays. I think we are unanimous at that point in moving ahead with this.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And like I said, we'll keep you informed in the coming steps of the process. And certainly we'll go back through this recording carefully, make sure everyone's advice to the artist is represented.
Great. So
Thank you,
our
Matt.
next steps are, written out in the agenda, but that is not necessarily things we need to necessarily cover today. I think we are done and we can adjourn. Is there anything else we need to cover, Chris?
I think that's it. I just, again, thank you so much for taking the time for this special meeting. I know you were all very busy. We're really excited to be able to keep this moving forward, and hopefully a year from now, we'll have a lot more detail on what's to come.
And,
Thanks, everybody.
I'll see Bruce doing his rock climbing show outside of the pillars.
I want to see that too.
I move we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Can't wait to see the project.
Night. Be safe.